Bruce Lee died with a swollen brain. That was the official medical fact. Not a curse, not a rumor, not a fight. Not a secret wound hidden from the public. His brain had expanded inside his skull, and by the time doctors understood how serious it was, the most famous martial artist in the world was gone. But almost 50 years later, scientists looked again at the same death, and one small detail in the timeline began to change the entire story. For decades, most people believed the explanation was simple. Bruce Lee had a headache. He was given a painkiller called Equagesic. He lay down to rest. He never woke up. The medicine caused a rare reaction. His brain swelled and he died. That became the accepted story. A tragic accident, a shocking reaction. A mystery, but one that seemed medically closed. But there was one problem. The headache may have started before he ever took the famous pill. That detail matters because it changes the direction of the investigation. If the headache and dizziness began before the medicine, then the pill may not have been the beginning of the disaster. It may have been taken after something had already started inside his body. And that means the real question is not only what was inside the pill, the real question is what was already happening inside Bruce Lee before he swallowed it. On July 20th, 1973, Bruce Lee was only 32 years old. He was not supposed to die. He was not old. He was not weak. He was not fading from fame. He was standing at the edge of becoming a global icon. Enter the Dragon was about to make him known across the world. His body was famous for speed, power, discipline, and control. To fans, Bruce Lee looked almost impossible to destroy. That is why his death became larger than a medical report. Some people blamed a curse. Some blamed secret enemies. Some blamed jealous rivals. Some blamed drugs. Some blamed the apartment where he died. But the real story did not need a wild conspiracy to be disturbing. The real medical timeline was already strange enough. The final day began in Hong Kong. Bruce Lee spent time discussing a film project. Later, he was at the apartment of actress Betty Ting Pei. At some point, he complained of a headache. He was given Equagesic, a medication that contained aspirin and meprobamate. He went to lie down. Later, when he could not be awakened, help was called. A doctor came. An ambulance came. He was taken to the hospital. But by then, the fight was already over. The official ruling said Bruce Lee died from cerebral edema, which means swelling of the brain. The suspected trigger was hypersensitivity to Equagesic. In simple words, the explanation was that his body had a rare bad reaction to the medicine, and that reaction caused the brain to swell. For years, that answer was repeated again and again. The pill became the center of the story. But the pill explanation never answered everything. Bruce Lee had reportedly taken Equagesic before. Rare reactions can happen suddenly, but this still left questions. And the biggest question was the timing. If Bruce already felt headache and dizziness before taking the tablet, then the first warning signs did not come from the medicine. They came from something else. This is where the re-examination becomes important. In 2022, kidney specialists reviewed the available evidence and proposed a different possibility. They did not claim murder. They did not claim a secret plot. Their theory was medical, quiet, and frightening. They suggested Bruce Lee may have died from hyponatremia. Hyponatremia means low sodium in the blood. Most people hear that and think it sounds minor, but sodium helps control water balance in the body. When sodium falls too low, water can move into cells. If this happens in the brain can swell. And inside the skull, swelling is dangerous because the skull cannot expand. Pressure rises. The brain is squeezed. Vital systems begin to fail. This theory does not mean Bruce Lee simply drank one glass of water and died. That is too simple. The idea is that his body may have been unable to safely handle water at that moment. Too much fluid, too little sodium, possible kidney stress, low food intake, and other risk factors may have combined into one fatal event. The danger was not water alone. The danger was broken balance. And Bruce Lee may have had warning signs before the final day. 2 months earlier, on May 10, 1973, he collapsed during a dubbing session. This earlier collapse is one of the most important clues in the case. He reportedly suffered headache, disorientation, vomiting, collapse, and convulsions. Doctors diagnosed cerebral edema, brain swelling, the same condition that would later kill him in July. Think about that carefully. Bruce Lee did not have one mysterious brain swelling event. He had a serious brain swelling episode in May, survived it, then died from brain swelling in July. That makes the final day feel less like a random accident and more like the second strike of a hidden problem. During the May episode, he was treated and recovered. To the public, Bruce Lee was still Bruce Lee, still powerful, still sharp, still superhuman on screen. But inside the medical history, there was already a warning. His brain had swollen before. His body had already crossed a dangerous line. The later scientific theory looked at this and asked a different question. What if the May collapse and the July death were connected? What if they were not two separate mysteries? What if Bruce Lee had an underlying vulnerability involving water balance, sodium, kidney function, heat, stress, diet, or a combination of all these things? One possible clue points to the kidneys. The kidneys control how much water leaves the body. They help regulate sodium and other electrolytes. If the kidneys cannot remove excess water fast enough, sodium in the blood can fall. If sodium falls too far, the brain can swell. This is why the kidney theory is so chilling. It moves the story away from enemies, curses, and one simple pill, and toward something invisible happening inside the bloodstream. Bruce Lee's image makes this hard to accept. People see muscle, speed, low body fat, and discipline, and they think that means perfect health. But health is not only what the body looks like from the outside. A person can look powerful and still be vulnerable to dehydration, overhydration, kidney strain, heat stress, electrolyte imbalance, medication effects, and nutritional stress. The outside can look like steel while the inside is fighting a silent battle. Another little known detail is Bruce Lee's diet and fluid habits. In the final months of his life, some accounts described him using juices, protein drinks, and liquid-heavy nutrition. He was intensely focused on staying lean. This detail may sound small, but medically it matters. If someone takes in a lot of fluid but not enough solid food, salt, or protein, the body may have a harder time clearing free water safely. The kidneys need solute to remove water. Solute comes from salt, food, and protein breakdown products. If fluid intake is high and solute intake is low, water can build up in the body more easily. This is why the newer theory focused on a dangerous combination, not one single cause. Fluid intake, low sodium, low food intake, possible kidney stress, a previous brain swelling episode, all of it could have moved in the same direction. The phrase, too much water, sounds impossible to many people. Water is healthy, water is safe, water is life. But in medicine, even water can become dangerous when the body loses balance. Athletes have died after drinking too much water without enough sodium. Some patients develop dangerous hyponatremias when their bodies cannot remove water properly. The body survives through balance, not extremes. And Bruce Lee lived at extremes: extreme training, extreme discipline, extreme pressure, extreme work, extreme fame, extreme body control. The world saw perfection, but perfection can hide stress. He was building a career across continents, carrying the pressure of representation, fighting production battles, and pushing his body hard. The legend looked effortless. The body behind the legend may not have been. Then there's the cannabis detail. Traces of marijuana were found, and rumors exploded for years. Some people tried to turn that into the entire story. But the careful scientific argument does not simply say cannabis killed Bruce Lee. The more important point is that cannabis can increase thirst in some people. If it played any role, it may have been indirect, by increasing fluid intake in a body already vulnerable to water imbalance. This is why the case is not simple. The old explanation points to a pill. The newer theory points to a system, a headache before the pill, a previous cerebral edema episode 2 months earlier, possible kidney stress, fluid-heavy intake, low solid food intake, cannabis possibly increasing thirst, medication entering later, then severe brain swelling. The autopsy did not show a body destroyed by violence. There was no clear wound that explained everything. The fatal finding was inside the skull. Bruce Lee's brain was swollen. It weighed more than expected. This was not just a vague description. It was physical evidence. His brain had expanded in a space that could not expand with it. But the autopsy could show the result better than the cause. It could show cerebral edema. It could show what happened. But why it happened remained the problem. Was it a rare reaction to Equagesic? Was it heat stroke? Was it hyponatremia? Was it a combination of several risk factors? This is why Bruce Lee's death still feels unresolved. The ending is clear. The trigger is debated. Another theory came from biographer Matthew Polly, who suggested heat stroke may have played a role. This idea had reasons behind it. Hong Kong was hot. Bruce Lee trained intensely. He reportedly had sweat glands removed from his armpits, which some believe may have affected cooling. Heat illness can cause collapse and brain damage. For a man known for physical intensity, heat stroke seems possible. But the kidney specialists challenged that explanation. They argued that the temperature was not extreme for Hong Kong summer and that severe heat stroke often leaves wider signs of organ damage. In their view, the available evidence fit better with hyponatremia and brain swelling. This does not erase the heat theory. It shows that even decades later, experts are still debating which explanation fits best. The public did not hear careful debate. The public heard scandal. Bruce Lee died at Betty Ting Pei's apartment, and early confusion around the location created suspicion. Fans were angry. Newspapers pushed dramatic stories. Rumors filled every empty space. The more famous Bruce Lee became after death, the more his death became a battlefield for theories. Betty Ting Pei was pulled into that storm. People blamed her, judged her, and connected her name to the final hours. But the evidence does not prove she killed Bruce Lee. She gave him the medicine after he complained of a headache. That is part of the timeline. But turning her into a villain is not evidence. It is what grief does when people want a human target. The curse theory also grew stronger after Bruce Lee's son, Brandon Lee, died years later in a tragic film accident. 2 shocking deaths, 2 young lives, 2 legends cut short. People connected them emotionally. But emotional connection is not medical proof. Bruce Lee's death still has to be understood through the evidence from 1973. And the evidence brings us back to the small detail that changes the story. The headache came before the pill. If that is true, then danger may have already started before Equagesic entered the body. The pill may still have mattered. It may have worsened something. It may have played a role, but it may not have been the first domino. For decades, people asked what was inside the pill. But the better question may be what was happening inside Bruce Lee before he took it. That question opens a different investigation. Not just allergy, not just medication, but water balance, sodium, kidneys, diet, thirst, prior collapse, brain swelling twice in 2 months. Imagine the final day this way. Bruce Lee feels unwell. A headache begins, dizziness appears. He drinks water. He takes a tablet. He lies down. To everyone around him, it looks like a normal headache. But inside the skull, pressure may already be rising. Inside the blood, sodium may already be falling. Inside the kidneys, water may not be leaving fast enough. At first, brain swelling can look ordinary. Headache, nausea, confusion, weakness, dizziness. Then it can become severe. Seizures, loss of consciousness, coma, death. That is what makes cerebral edema terrifying. People around the victim may not understand the danger until the person cannot wake up. Bruce Lee's famous philosophy makes the story even more haunting. He told people to be like water, formless, shapeless, able to flow, adapt, and crash. That line became part of his legend, but the re-examination of his death gives it a dark medical echo. Water gives life, but when the body loses balance, water can also become part of a fatal chain. This does not reduce Bruce Lee to the way he died. He was more than a medical mystery. He changed cinema. He changed martial arts. He changed the way the world saw Asian actors, fighting philosophy, physical expression, and personal discipline. He became a symbol of power and freedom. But because he became so legendary, people found it almost impossible to accept that his body could fail like any other human body. People wanted a villain, a curse, a secret enemy, a hidden truth, something equal to the size of the legend. But the body does not care about legend. The body cares about sodium, water pressure, kidneys, temperature, and blood. The body can fail quietly, even when the world sees a hero. The new theory is powerful because it makes the death feel more human and more disturbing at the same time. It suggests Bruce Lee may have been caught in a rare medical trap that no one recognized in time, a trap created by ordinary things under extraordinary conditions: fluid, diet, stress, medication, thirst, heat, and a previous collapse. One by one, they may have moved toward the same fatal ending. Still, the honest answer is that no one can go back and test Bruce Lee's blood sodium from that final hour. The one measurement that could prove hyponatremia was not saved for modern scientists to examine. That means the theory remains a strong hypothesis, not a final verdict. The official record still matters. The Equagesic explanation still matters. The heat stroke theory still exists. But the re-examination forces a new question into the case. What if the thing everyone blamed was not the first cause? What if the real danger began before the medicine? What if the most important clue was not the pill bottle, but the body chemistry no one measured in time? That is why Bruce Lee's death still feels alive. The autopsy tells us the brain swelled. The timeline suggests symptoms began before the medicine. The earlier collapse shows this was not the first brain swelling crisis. The diet and fluid reports suggest vulnerability. The kidney theory gives a possible mechanism, but certainty remains just out of reach. Bruce Lee died at the exact moment the world was about to fully discover him. He was 32. Enter the Dragon was waiting, fame was waiting, history was waiting. Then one afternoon in Hong Kong, a headache became a coma, and a living legend became a mystery. For years, people asked how a man like Bruce Lee could die so suddenly. The answer may be that no one is protected from invisible biology. Not strength, not fame, not discipline, not genius. A body can look perfect and still be one imbalance away from collapse. The final detail remains the same. The headache came before the famous painkiller. That does not prove every old theory wrong, but it weakens the simplest version of the story. It tells us the danger may have already started before the tablet was swallowed. It tells us this was never only about one pill. And in the end, the most shocking possibility is not that Bruce Lee died from something supernatural. It is that he may have died from something silent, medical, and measurable, something that left behind a swollen brain, a confused timeline, and a question that survived for 50 years. The world saw Bruce Lee as a man who mastered his body. But on July 20th, 1973, his body became the one opponent he could not defeat. Not because he was weak, not because the legend was false, but because the final enemy was invisible. It moved through water, sodium, kidneys, and pressure. It left no dramatic wound. It made no sound. It simply rose inside the skull until the greatest martial artist of his generation could not wake up. That is the detail that changes everything. The pill was not the first warning. The headache was. By the time everyone understood the danger, the real fight may have already been happening deep inside Bruce Lee's brain.